Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast, where smart strength training meets real life. We're Dr. Matt and Nicole Klingberg, founders of Village Fitness and Physical Therapy. Here, you'll learn what really works in the gym, at home, and for life. All right. Well, today on the Strength for Life podcast, we have Mike McAleenan, a client of ours in the San Marino location, and he's going to share his incredible story with us today of how strength training and physical therapy have impacted his life. So, Mike, welcome to the Strength for Life podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. A little nervous, but I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your age, where you grew up, things like that.
I'm 88 years old, and I did some senior games, California senior games.
Did you really?
Where I got challenged on my age.
Okay.
So the rest of the competitions, I would bring my New York State birth certificate,
Yeah.
my DD 214, which the veterans in the audience will all recognize, and the California driver's license that says veteran on it. But I am 88 years old. I can't help that.
88. Wow. You don't look it.
My family was based in the Northeast, and this was an interesting Irish Catholic family of 5 children. My parents both grew up very wealthy. Then the crash of '29 hit, and where they had servants to basically deal with children. By the time I came along, depression baby, and I think they were a little tired of parenting. So I actually probably grew up more as an only child.
Wow.
And to tell you a little bit more about the context, the 2 hometowns that I spent the most time in until I went into service were Greens Farms and Spring Lake.
Okay.
Now, this is out of a children's story. These aren't real towns, but they were. They were idyllic. Little did I know that my parents had, I found out very soon that my parents had an alcohol problem and that they were actually living in houses under false pretenses. And that's why we had to move. And so luckily I was young enough where I didn't really feel very much of this, and the alcohol was very passive. It was no violence or anything of the sort. So the other interesting statistic is that my oldest brother was born, another brother 2 years later, a third brother 2 years after that, a sister 2 years after that, and me 6 years after the sister.
Wow.
So there's been some teasing in the family about, the Catholic mistake. So these were idyllic towns, and I think from the beginning, I was enamored with sports. Played Little League Baseball, elementary school baseball and basketball, and on up the line. So it wasn't so much that I was focused on strength, more on staying in shape, getting in shape, doing whatever would help performance in a particular sport. The intriguing thing here is that one of my brothers, the number 2 son, Pete, was into physical culture very early. He was way ahead of the curve in the 1940s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was doing the Charles Atlas thing and the strength with that. And he would tie magazines around a broomstick, each end of the broomstick.
Okay.
And use it for a makeshift barbell.
That's awesome.
Tie magazines around the ends of a broomstick. Wow. That's very creative.
That is incredibly creative. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you join him?
Well, here's what happened. My father was dead set against it, but he pursued it anyway. And they had a very good YMCA. This was in Westport, Connecticut. So he wrestled and weightlifted at the YMCA because the family wasn't going to put out any money for this my father said, you'd be muscle bound. You won't be able to move. We know so much better now.
Yeah.
Um, so when we moved down to Spring Lake, and we were a block and a half from the ocean, so swimming was a big, and wave riding, body surfing was a big activity. And he also, one of the other lifeguards, had a barbell set and broke up with his girlfriend and had a terrible reaction to it. So he gave away his barbell set to my brother Pete.
Wow.
And my father wouldn't have it in the house, so it was in the garage. And he and I would go in and work out together.
That's
and
awesome.
he made a little 3x5 card with about 12 exercises. I think the difference between what he was doing then and your program is that it was isolating big muscles, large muscles.
Okay.
So
you guys
curls,
you weren't doing
bench presses,
okay.
things of that nature.
Were you guys doing squats and deadlifts and overhead presses?
No, I
too?
never did a deadlift until
okay.
one of Dr. Tyler's sessions.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
I started with the bar on the deadlift.
Wow. That's impressive.
So that was interesting, to say the least. This was a summer that he was with us. He went back to college, and the guy showed up at the door one day. He has a new girlfriend. He's always gained his weight back. He wants his
barbell set
wants
back.
his barbells back.
Oh my gosh.
Your brother
And I'm
said,
going,
your brother
no,
said,
you
no
gave him
way,
to-
you gave him to
Yeah.
us.
You gave him to my brother.
Your
What are you
brother
talking
was nice,
about?
though. He probably gave him back, huh?
Well, my brother wouldn't have given him back, but he was in college.
Oh, okay.
My father was only too glad.
He was happy.
to get them out of the garage.
That's funny.
But it stuck with me, Pete's gospel of the weights and the weight training and the necessity for strength. And he was even into better nutrition and this sort of thing. So that was the beginning, the germ of the idea. And now, again, I'm returning full circle in some respects. High school years were pretty normal, except the one other school issue is when I was in second grade, I had a couple of friends, two best friends who lived in the neighborhood, who were in third grade. My parents decided that I should be in the same grade as they. So I skipped third grade.
Oh, wow.
Now, I already was probably in a middle range or maybe smaller size-wise. So now there's greater incentive to get bigger, get stronger, whatever. Because, at 5 feet 1 inch, I think I led the boys up the graduation line in 8th grade. So I was still fighting that kind of battle. Yeah. But again, there were no barbells in the picture. It was, but sports, active sports every season. And again, trying to stay in shape. When high school was, I played, basketball was a big sport. By then we were in New Jersey. And I had played mostly baseball in Connecticut. So I had to try to learn from scratch here. Made the 6-man varsity finally senior year. And we had 20 boys, a small Catholic school, 20 boys in a senior class. But we beat some large, like Trenton Catholic had 2,000 boys. We beat them in basketball. So
that's awesome.
We had a pretty successful season. And I remember there was a pizza place where we'd go after the games. And if we had a good game, and you walk in the door and people would clap. Been back to that pizza place many times.
Yeah.
It was a very good memory. So the particular college counseling at that point was um, you're good in math. You should be an engineer. You should go into an engineer program. So I applied to Notre Dame, to Purdue, which had a good engineering program at the time, and got accepted to both. And then my parents told me we can't afford it. So I ended up at a school called Newark College of Engineering in the middle of Newark, New Jersey. It was not a residential school. So I commuted an hour and a half each way on the train.
Wow.
Played 2 freshman sports, took 31 hours of classes, and lived at home and had a girlfriend.
You're
So
busy.
Yeah.
at the end of the year, the dean called me into his office, and he's there with his glasses, and he was looking at papers. And finally, he turned to me and he said, "Michael, this would be a really good time to get your military obligation out of the way." Now, was that a classy way to tell me you just flunked out of here? So I went looking at military. I was too young for air cadets, having skipped 3rd grade. And I finally ended up in the Army. And again, this says something about my family. All 4 brothers served. One in the Air Force, which was then the Air Corps, one in the Navy, Pete in the Marines, which figured, and I ended up in the paratroopers in the Army. So again, the family had different ideas of life and where to go and what to do. So
What years did you serve in that? What years did you serve in the Army?
1955 to 1959.
Okay.
I was very lucky to be between wars.
Yeah.
But there was a Cold War on. Khrushchev was going to bomb us if we didn't get out of Germany. And the paratroopers, you know, there was so much artillery and tanks from the Soviet Union on the East German border. And if they ever came across, the paratrooper units would be one of the first ones in there. So there were tense times. It wasn't anything like, you know, the heroes who served in combat, but it was still a tense situation.
Now, did you do any barbell training in the military?
No.
No. Okay.
Basically, it was body weight.
Yeah.
I've gotten used to BW. I know.
Yeah.
So it was body weight, the daily dozen. And it was squat jumps and push-ups and a whole bit. And then the 300-meter run, 560-meter turns around. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was pretty much it. But it was often enough that it kept us in some kind of shape. And from the prior athletics and the good enough shape, after I got through basic training, I had applied for officer candidate school at my father's urging. And I don't know why. He never served, but he insisted that that's what I should do. And it turned out to be a good move. I got accepted, but they didn't have an opening in the class. So I was assigned to a kind of a headquarters company unit where you went out and picked up trash or whatever. But I was in good enough shape that they identified me and a college gymnast who was a friend of mine from the same unit to be the demonstrators for the Daily Dozen. I let him have the pull-ups. I did the push-ups and a variety of other things. Finally got down into a class in OCS. And once again, we're still on the body weight type thing and cross-country runs. And if you happen to be a little more stout than some of the others, you ended up with somebody else's rifle or pack. And it would developed that way. Um, the when I was in OCS, it was very competitive. I think about 45% of the class dropped out.
Wow.
And or they were pushed out.
Mm.
And if they were pushed out, you'd wake up in the morning and a mattress would be folded in thirds and all the guy's belongings would be gone. And you'd go to breakfast and he'd be serving you the eggs.
Oh, wow.
Now, talk about
Humbling.
motivation
Yeah.
to stay in. And the other thing is that the physical training tests were very competitive between the platoons.
Mm.
And if you had a good score, that was a lot of respect. And it was such with the exercises they chose that 400 would be like an elite, would be Colton, for example. And I was in about the 375 group, which was sort of the second level of respect. And the reason why this was important is that we had to submit buddy reports every 4 weeks. You evaluated every other member of the platoon on hygiene, potential courage in battle, I mean,
Wow.
all those things. And at the end of that 4-week period, there would be some folded mattresses. Okay.
Mm.
So in the middle of this, they send around a sheet of schools that you might want to go to after you get out of OCS, if you get out successfully. And it was Ranger School. And I thought, what they say about that is you never get any sleep. And I'm not a great non-sleeper. And jump school, I'll come back to that one. Flight school, but then you had to add a year to your commitment to the service. I didn't want to do that. And underwater demolition. Well, I was a good swimmer, but I didn't have any use for having explosives with me.
Yeah.
So I took flight school, I took jump school. 3 weeks, you get 5 jumps, get $110 extra a month pay, and you can brag about
dangerous.
It's dangerous and good party story after I get out. So the Army took that I just signed up for a 2-year commitment to 82nd Airborne. So given the political situation that we've talked about so far, I thought I'd better get myself as prepared as possible. So I went through Ranger School and I went through Jump Master School, and I applied for an expert infantry badge where you have a whole day of field contests, accuracy throwing a grenade and all sorts of things like that. 14 of us out of the 1,000 who took it got him. So again, I relate this to staying in shape, playing the sports, and so forth. And in the Jump Master situation, you're in charge of the flight from the time you meet at the airport until you get to the marshalling area after the jump. And so when 5 minutes out, the red light comes on, and you have a series of commands where you get everybody up, get them hooked up, do a confidence check out the door, and then finally the green light comes on. And so you tap. Usually we jumped out of C-123 cargo planes, and there would be 2 lines of paratroopers waiting to go. So you tap alternately so that they wouldn't freakishly collide underneath the plane or anything. And the desk officers on the base, the higher ranking desk officers, wouldn't get paid unless they jumped every month. So they would frequently show up, and here I was a first lieutenant. This major showed up one day, and, Lieutenant, can I hook on? And I said, sure. and just as a courtesy, put him in front of one of the sticks, as they're called, the lines. And the green light came on. I tapped the guy on this side, tapped the guy on this side, tapped the guy on this side. The guy on this side was still there. Tapped him again. Went back over here, and now he's still there. I basically shoved him out of the plane. Now, this had to have a little strength from past physical activity, because not only did I have to get his body width out of the plane, but also the parachute on his back that added some more width. So
he just didn't want to jump.
I never asked him.
He didn't get mad at you?
That's part of the story. Well, I got him out there far enough successfully, and got the rest of the flights out there. I mean, the situation was such that the drop zones were sand, and at the edge of the drop zones was woods. And about a month before, we had a captain where the pilot misjudged where he should put the green light on. Captain went into the trees, and a branch went right through his thigh.
Oh, wow.
So he was out of action for a while. So I had that in my mind. I had to get this guy out. So I got him out of the plane and got the plane cleared. I jumped and raced to the marshalling area. And I thought, because on the plane, I outranked him. It didn't matter that, whoever is jump master shoots you over the other guy. But once he comes to the marshalling area and drops his parachute, he outranks me. So he came running up, and I thought, here we go. And he drops his chute and he goes, "Good jump, Lieutenant." And I said, "Yes, sir." Yeah. And I went, "Whew." Yeah. Thankful for that.
Yeah.
Mike, tell us, so you were in the military. Tell us, after you got out of the military, what was kind of that period of life like in terms of your physical activity and things like that?
I got out of the military, and like a lot of people, I was in almost 4 years.
Okay.
And like a lot of people, was lost. I went to stay with another brother for about 4 months, and I was on his couch for the first month, not knowing what to do. And then some things started going badly within the family, and I actually took a map and I took some pins and stuck them in. Parents were in New York City, sister up in Syracuse, brother down in Florida, brother in Michigan. Drew the lines, bisected the angle, and I ended up in Southern California for a year. It was,
I don't know how you worked that out, but
that didn't work out well at all. That was a lost year. We're not going to talk much about that.
Okay.
Bad decisions, nothing, criminal or alcohol related, but just bad decisions, the wrong people. And I was a year into it, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from Pete. He's running a boys' ranch in Michigan, and he needs counselors who had some athletic ability, who related well to kids, and it was a lifeline. I jumped at it. And of course, one of the major points of emphasis was strength and physical training. And, they had a class in lifting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some wild stuff. We had sports on horseback. We played water polo on horseback.
Wow.
And there's a lake right on the property.
Wow.
So, and it was competitive, tough, clean air, cowboy style living.
Awesome.
The kids were in cabins, and I was a counselor and later head counselor there. Just the antidote to that particular year. And from that time on, basically, I was hooked back into the barbell culture.
Oh, wow.
There certainly were some gaps in discipline here and there, but they were short.
So you trained with barbells throughout pretty much your whole life?
Well, I guess I was about 23 when I went to see him. So,
Okay.
yeah, I didn't do that much of it through the academic part of it. But when I got my PhD and started teaching down here at Occidental College in Eagle Rock for 34 years, trained religiously and had what I would do is get to know the athletic director really well and work him for keys to the weight
To the weight room?
Yeah, because I have this reputation. I hate that to have an athletic facility not available when people are available to use it.
Yeah.
So, and they went through so many athletic directors. Um, Two instances. One, the guy, I had gotten his sister back into college when she had decided to go away.
Mm.
And he eventually became athletic director. He was a great basketball player and a big, tough guy. He got to be athletic director. He gave me the key to everything. I mean, even the backside parking lot for Christmas vacation, I could open the parking gates and get in. And by this time, I had two boys who were interested in sports. So I'd be bringing them along. We'd had midnight basketball games.
That's so fun. At Occidental College?
Yeah, at Occidental College.
What city is that in?
Eagle Rock.
Oh, it's in Eagle Rock.
Neighborhood,
Okay.
The neighborhood, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have one picture here if I can get it.
Yeah, sure. That's cool. So you trained throughout your whole life. So that's been something that's been really important to you.
Yes,
for the duration of your lifespan. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Most of the people we have on the podcast and most of our clients, in fact, have not trained
Right.
their whole life. So you're kind of unique in that. I'm curious I'll let you do that.
No, that's okay.
What brought you to Village then? What help did you need?
Okay. That's very much part of the story. Let me just see if I can find this quickly. No, I'm not going to be able to shoot.
That's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it from you after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had the experience with it at Occidental, 34 years, and then retired early and took a job with LA County Superior Court doing hearings, commitment hearings on mental patients at 59 or so establishments within LA County.
This is your second career, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And there were two decisions you could make. One, whether they were legally committed or should be freed. The second one, whether they were legally able to refuse psychiatric medication or be forced to take it. And I still had access to the weight room for life.
At Occidental?
That was nice. Yes.
Nice.
That price was right too. So some of the hearings could be dangerous. I don't want to overstate that.
Yeah.
But not all of these people were in there anywhere near their right mind.
Right mind, yeah.
So I wanted to stay in as good shape as possible and try to look as young as possible. So, I mean, first appearance means a lot as whether the guy's going to go after you. And I hate to admit this in front of everybody, but about 4 years, I dyed my hair black. So I would still
look young,
look even younger. Yeah. Only got hit once, and that was somebody I had nothing to do with, who came up from behind, and I was able to get the briefcase up, but he had long arms.
Wow.
So just a little cut over the eye, but they went crazy. The hospital was worried about liability. And,
sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that was an important reason to keep it up. And since I retired, I decided 3 times a week I was going Occidental every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
What was your typical workout program in those 3 times a week?
When I got hooked up with the California Senior Games, they had, I joke with people, well, I chose bench press because it's the only one that you can do lying down. So the bench presses were different in the 2 different cities. I competed in Pasadena and San Diego. And one of them was very much like the NFL combine, where you have a fairly light weight and you press it as many times as you could.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then the Pasadena one was straight.
Max.
You get 3 lifts.
Okay. More like traditional
powerlifting. Pause at the bottom and then boom. So I was doing about 45, 50 reps on the 55-pound one down in San Diego.
Okay.
And of course, got the gold.
Nice.
5 golds down there.
Nice.
And then in Pasadena was 140 in a contest, 145 or 150 in the gym at age 84, 85.
Wow, that's awesome.
So then,
and so your workout routine that you would do though were you doing a lot of bench press or would you do all the barbell lifts? I know you said you didn't do deadlifts.
A lot of bench press. I was doing the combination curl and the tricep machine with it's weighted, so the machine would do 75 pounds and I would do the other 95.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that, and then the leg machines I was doing intervals on the bike for the cardio.
Yeah.
And it was about an hour routine, but by myself, nobody to spot. And also a rate, I could rest until ready for the next exercise.
Yeah.
One of the shocks of moving into small group here.
At Village, yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. And when you're through that, you do this. You don't rest.
Yeah.
That's because Nicole, make sure that people keep moving.
Well, I've heard she's
ruthless.
Both of you, you've got quite a program there.
Good.
I'll have a lot to say about that.
Okay. Well, what kind of prompted you to seek out a program when you were already, working out on your own?
Well, around low 70s, certain things began to happen with the body. I have an artificial hip. I have a pacemaker. My son gave me a T-shirt that said, made in 1937, all original parts. And it's really a lie because there's a couple others in there that are helping it along. But I recovered quickly and well from them and was able to get back into things. The recovery period was not long enough for sarcopenia to really be a major issue any more than it was of being 80 or 81 or whatever.
Yeah.
But about 82, I think I went to war with sarcopenia. It got very personal. I had a primary care physician who was trying to get me to take a statin. And all of my cholesterol stuff was right in the middle. Right in the middle.
Why did they want you to take a statin?
She wanted them lower.
Huh. Okay.
It didn't make any sense to me. and then later on, two things happened. One is the spine. I had a herniated disc. I had an operation on that. Recovered from that well, but the guy said to me, "Your spine is going to give you trouble down the line," and it did. My oldest son took our whole family to Hawaii for about 13 days and went to the favorite body surfing beach for a couple of hours and was body surfing the same waves as the boys who were excellent swimmers. And the next morning, I could hardly get out of bed. The joints, everything hurt.
Mm.
And that persisted for a long period of time. I went 8 months without being able to work out.
Wow.
I spent 3 days in a row in a lazy boy all day, except for little bathroom trips, and they were so painful. Lost 10 pounds, and I'm thinking this is sarcopenia going wild. And at this same time, I'm hearing from Kristen. Kristen was a really good athlete.
It's your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In college, or not in college, but in high school. And then she's 5'2", and she got in a terrible automobile accident and had trouble with her back. And she said, I said, "You're in a new workout program?" She said, "Yeah. I found this physical therapist, PhD physical therapist." I said, "Really?" Because I'm used to being showed with a graduate student when I'm in physical, or the undergrad when I'm in physical, the intern, the student intern. "Yeah, he's a PhD. And Dad, he's magic." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, he's just really a miracle worker." I said, "Well," and later on I used to joke, "Well, I saw him as Joseph, but I didn't realize he was connected in that particular way." But she went on to a point where I said, "Well, how's the workout program going?" And this is well into it. I did 5 pull-ups with the aid of the bands. I said, "Kristen, you're 5'2", you're overweight. You didn't do 5 pull-ups." "Yes, I did." And in my third quarter, I deadlifted 173 pounds. Oh my God. My daughter is turning into a real stud. So I said, "I got to go see this." So I asked, would I be able to observe a session, and the answer was sure, which to me was a very good sign. So I went and watched the session, and I thought, And she kept talking about the pain relief, that I would tell him that it's here that it hurts, and he would press here, and it wouldn't hurt anymore.
I love it. That's awesome.
Doubting Thomas, I had to sign up for the kind of the evaluation period. And I did, and he did some of that magic on me.
This is Tyler, Dr.
This
Tyler.
is Tyler, Dr.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I hadn't worked with even a workout partner, much less a trainer, for the last 15 years before that. And maybe after the program, I can show you the pictures, find them, because I think you'd be surprised that I could do that on my own, but it went well. But I knew I needed help.
Okay.
And I started at the bottom. I mean, he would hand me a bottle of water in our sessions, and I'd have to hand it back to him to open it because I couldn't get enough pain-free strength of motion in it. I had to hand my wife back quarts of milk to open. Yeah. Talk about embarrassment. Here I'm doing 140 on the bench, and now I couldn't even open the cap.
Mm.
So the two lifelines in my life were when my brother called me out in California and said, we need you to move on the healthy side of life. And when I signed up with Dr. Tyler to start.
Wow. That's remarkable.
And it's really remarkable. The first sessions would be almost 50 minutes of pain management.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, my wife got so supportive because you come home better than you left here every time, you know. And then finally, you know, then it would be maybe 40-20, 30, and just like that until I finally started making some real progress. And
How long ago did you start?
how
How old were you, or how many years ago did you start working with Tyler? Was it last year or 2 years ago?
last year.
Last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're just a young buck, 80, 87.
Yeah, I just
then.
had my 50th
session.
Oh,
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how did he convince you to graduate from physical therapy?
Well, he never pushed.
Okay.
He never pushed. I got thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you in the house that Kristen was pushing me to do the small group. She said, I think it would help you get there faster.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, you know, and I knew that I was not pushing myself hard enough in the Occidental sessions.
Mm.
Didn't even have a workout buddy to go, come on,
Yeah.
you can do this. So again, I went and watched a session and I thought, okay, I'll give this a try. Very skeptical. I always felt, you know, when in teaching, if you had people of very different abilities, you know, in my graduate program, I taught at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, and you'd get a 30-year-old sailor, you know, who hadn't read a book in 15 years, and you'd get some hot college student who's on summer leave from Stanford. And whoa, how do you meet this package? And I'm thinking that the coaches would be faced with the same thing.
Yeah.
It'd be, you know, it usually ended up in academia where the mean fell down to the lowest person. So I kind of backed in the door, to tell the truth, about the small groups.
Mm.
And when I backed in the door, I found a challenge. And I came up to you after your lecture, and I said, you know, for someone who coming back to it like me from the bottom, it wasn't just strength. There was plenty of cardio.
Yeah.
Particularly, I now was doing pretty well with the deadlift from ground zero. And so doing the 5 previous reps, I'd have to put on the 10-pounders. And
how much weight are you deadlifting these days at 88 years old? You say you're 88 or 86? 88. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be 89 in April.
Okay.
So last session I made 140.
Whoa.
That's so impressive.
And
can you look up his numbers?
I was stuck at 135 for a long time.
Yeah, you got to cross 135 to be respectable. So 140 now I'm just teasing.
I've heard about you. So,
you're 2 pounds away from your standard.
Yeah, I saw that on there. I was, whoa.
Colton better make you do that next week.
And
next week's benchmark week, yeah.
And you know, I had raised a question one time when I had done a deadlift, I think around 120 or so. And the particular coach was watching me. And I said, what'd you think? And he said, it was very smooth. And so when I got my sheet afterward, he put +2. And I'm going, what?
You said that's the wrong thing to say to a personal trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
You never want to ask him, how's it look? You always just say, well, that was hard. That was really hard.
No, I wanted to go up.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
looking
well,
for
that's what you wanted. That's what you're going to get. And what about your overhead press? What are you lifting with that one?
Well, I get to a little advantage. Dr. Tyler had me do it up against the rack.
Okay.
Okay. So the last time I did 35.
Nice. Okay. What about your squats?
Squat, I'm doing the
Searcher?
The Searcher 65.
65 pounds with the Searcher? Nice.
Yeah,
What's the standard for that one?
I have blood thinner, so I have a little bit of a proof that I did 60
I know,
pounds,
right? Yeah,
65 pounds.
That's how, all right, now I can believe you.
Yeah.
So
impressive. So I'm kind of curious, Mike. So you trained throughout your life. So obviously you have a lifetime of training experience. And then it sounds like you had kind of stopped for a small period of time and you felt like you were getting weaker, or not necessarily.
No, it was more the circumstances.
Oh, okay. Because what happened that caused you to not be able to open the jars and take the top off?
That was the arthritis and the inflammation.
Got it.
It was just so pronounced. I mean, I would get cortisone shots and they would last for they started about 4 weeks and then 3 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And not at all.
I see.
So it was how much inflammation I had.
Okay.
And so when I'd arrive at Dr. Tyler's, it was, what should we work on first?
Yeah.
And I said, this shoulder. And so we'd go from there, basically.
Cool. Let me ask a different question then. How many 88-year-olds do you know that are as active as you?
That's why I never had a workout partner.
Yeah. Not many 88-year-olds look like you, are as mentally agile as you. How much of that do you attribute to genetics? How much do you attribute to just exercising throughout the course of your life? And then how much do you attribute to the exercise that you're doing now?
I attribute, some of it to genetics, but we did find out, my brother Pete that was such an inspiration, did some research and found out that no McAleenan male had ever lived past 84. At the time he was doing that. During his 84th year, I received a lot of phone calls from him.
Yeah.
He was really worried about he was going to be he actually lived till 92.
Oh, cool.
So genetics certainly accounted for some of them. My father was a very well-built man for his day and age. Never touched a weight, had a big barrel chest and had a physique. So certainly some of it's genetic. But my brother, who did work with weights literally nonstop. I mean, I went to a gym with him when he was 92.
Wow.
He did a workout.
This is your brother Pete?
Not heavy weights, but.
That's your brother Pete?
Pete, yeah.
Okay.
He also, when he was in college, he wrestled at 160, and the heavyweight wrestler got hurt. They put Pete in at heavyweight.
Oh, wow.
And he still won half his matches.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's an example of what can be done on top of genetics.
Yeah.
So I think it was mainly the job circumstances or, the being in the PhD program. I was in Hawaii. I body surfed 3-hour sessions. And so, more of the long, lean muscles,
Mm-hmm.
not looking like you just came out of a weight room. That was one period where I wasn't on the weights. Once I got to Occidental, and I was probably 33 or so when I started teaching there. it was pretty steady. It's been
Mm.
pretty steady for 50 years, but no trainer, no teammate, training partner. And so, except for when I got into California Senior Games, there wasn't that push, there
Yeah.
wasn't that goal there. Since then, and since I'm in this program, I've changed my own philosophy. I mean,
Okay.
I'm convinced that the competition is personal.
Ah, okay.
That what I'm really looking for is quality of life and gain and length of life.
Mm.
My wife is 23 years younger than I am.
23. Wow.
Yes. I asked her to marry me at a time when she had suitors. There's no question about that. And I had 2 kids, divorcee with 2 kids, 23 years older than her. And she said yes. And we've been together over 40 years now.
Wow.
It's almost a moral obligation that I do enough to stay with her as long as I can stay with her.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
Good for you.
thank you.
Right. Well, if you had to go back to your 30-year-old self, or say 32, because you said Kristen's 32, what advice would you give to your 32-year-old self, health-wise?
Well, mainly that you're paying ahead for yourself, that every workout is going to count.
Yeah.
Later on in your life, not just the day or the week or the month or the year or the particular boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's going to count. And it's almost like a retirement fund.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you keep depositing.
Yeah.
Stay with it because it will pay you back.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think a lot of people spend time, focusing on investing their money, but they don't put, the time and effort and energy into that, like you said, that health savings account. And so when it does come time to draw on it, if there's not much there, it's a lot harder when you enter, into,
Tell me about it.
yeah. But you did a good job of inputting, a lot into that before you got to the point where,
But
now
I
you
would
get to
have,
enjoy it. Yeah.
I mean, looking back, I would have.
You would have done more? You would have done more?
Yeah.
Okay.
And particularly since I had the awareness from my brother.
Mhm.
I mean, he was out on a limb. He was ahead of the curve in the 1940s. But his advice never left me. That's for sure, and that's why I kept coming back to it.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Well, thanks for sharing your story today, Mike. It's definitely going to be an inspiration to everyone that listens to this. And I know it was for us as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Well,
Yeah.
Can I make one other point?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Of
Go
course.
ahead.
Yeah.
Sharon's father was chief of surgery at Arcadia Methodist Hospital, hard charging. Every time he would take us out to dinner, his whole family. He had 2 other daughters besides Sharon. Somebody would come up. You saved my mother's life. You know, it was like going to dinner with a rock star all the time. So I began to think about how am I going to face this guy across the table and say, I'd like to marry your daughter. I'm sure you don't mind. And so that summer, when I was at Occidental, I developed an Occidental in Hawaii program, because during my graduate studies there, I got to know all the people in my areas were delinquency and deviance. So I got to know the custodial staff at the prisons and the runaway people. I had a whole network. So I would take students from Occidental who would sign up for 2 courses And it would be the social and cultural history of Hawaii. And then it would be their internship, where they would work in a dropout program or in a runaway program or in a prison school or whatever. And then we would have seminars with some of the people who were working there. And I would get a lot of time to study the sociology of the beach while that was going on. So we had an arrangement with a woman who had a townhouse and would go to the mainland in the summer. And we took care of her dog, and she loved that dog. So we got a nice deal. Across the road were 2 outdoor basketball courts and a baseball field. So, and the boys were now 14 and 10. So our days would be a couple hours body surfing or boogie boarding for them. A couple of hours full court basketball, 2-on-1.
Who was the two? Them two versus you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The older son was playing freshman basketball, and he was learning picks and things like that. And the younger one was small, but he was fast. He was a good athlete.
You didn't let him win, did you?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But they worked my butt off. So basically, the oldest one could go to a gym that we went to, a small storefront gym, and he could spot. So I got ripped that summer. And because I thought, this guy's a physician, what he's going to worry about is all the health issues.
Yeah.
So I had a little 3x5 card, and I have the 100/60 and the blood pressure and the resting pulse 59. I mean, I had my stuff. I invited him to lunch, and it was a little awkward getting started. I mean, we were civil, but we were not close. So we finally got settled down, and I thought I'd try to get the awkwardness off this a little bit. And I said, I'm sure you're wondering why I asked you to lunch, and he knew damn well why I asked him to lunch. And I said, I'm sure you do not consider me an ideal mate for your daughter. And he goes, on the contrary, I do. You know, I haven't told my story yet. I still have my cards, but I was smart enough to put them away.
Yeah. At that point, yeah.
Yeah. And I credit that to the workouts. I mean, he saw what kind of shape I was keeping myself in, and that I probably was. I may not make up the 23 year gap, but I was at least moving in that direction.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your story.
Sure.
Yeah. We really appreciated it. And I know everyone's going to be super interested to hear what you have to say. And thanks for sharing your life. I'm sure there's a lot we didn't get to cover today, but yeah, we loved hearing it.
Thanks, Mike. It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.